Yo, people and patrons of the night. It is your boy, the Horrorlander. And today we're going to be talking about the short stories that were supposed to be adapted in the Unmade Tales from the Darkside movie sequel. Now, for those of you who are unaware of the lore, I'm going to have to give you a little quick summary on my elite ball knowledge and get you guys to know about ball. So let's talk about what exactly is the ties to the Unmade Tales from the Darkside movie sequel, and why is it relevant to Creepshow? Now, Creepshow, without a doubt, is the most iconic, the most popular, I'd argue, one of the most popular, and one of the best, easily, anthological horror media out there, okay? They have a really great TV show. They had a lot of great movies. The movies is what started it up. I heard that they're going to be coming back with movies, so, be on the lookout for the future. But the first movie, Creepshow 1982, is definitely always going to be the most iconic, the most popular, the most loved. So when the success of the first Creepshow movie happened, the fact that George Romero, Stephen King, Greg Nicotero, I think even Richard P. Rubenstein got involved with Creepshow early on, and he was the one who wrote and did stuff for the Tales from the Darkside TV show, as well as the TV show Monsters. So that first movie's success led to it getting a sequel, Creepshow 2. Now, Creepshow 2 had a little bit of a production change-up while it was happening, because the movie was originally supposed to be 4 segments, and 2 of the story segments actually ended up in the movie. But the other 2 did not make it and ended up getting adapted into other stuff. The 2 that ended up making it into the Creepshow 2 movie was Old Chief Woodenhead and The Raft. Now, you guys probably like those segments. You may love those segments. But the 2 did not make it. The 2 that did not make it was The Cat from Hell by Stephen King and a story that Stephen King wrote specifically for the Creepshow 2 movie called Pinfall. Now, The Cat from Hell ended up in the first Tales from the Darkside movie. It's the middle segment in that movie. It got adapted. And the fact that Tales from the Darkside, the movie, feels a lot like the Creepshow movies in its structure, its execution, the fact that they adapted the Stephen King story in there, and The Cat from Hell, which was supposed to be in Creepshow 2, is in there. You can basically treat Tales from the Darkside, the movie at this point, as official Creepshow. All right, that Creepshow 3 travesty we had, you can kind of treat that as like a redheaded stepchild. You can go ahead and look at Tales from the Darkside, the movie, as the real kind of Creepshow 3. And Tales from the Darkside was going to have a sequel movie. In that sequel movie, the last segment from Creepshow 2 that got dropped, Pinfall, was going to be adapted into the sequel, Tales from the Darkside 2. So this series basically became a continuation to Creepshow. The fact that those segments got pulled here, the fact that George Romero took Pinfall, he was going to adapt in the second movie, all these things basically led this to be a Creepshow continuation. So even though, unfortunately, we never got the Tales from the Darkside sequel movie, even though the first movie was successful, so I don't know why that happened, we do know what 3 stories were going to get adapted into segments. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I read the original short stories. I got encouraged by one of the biggest, if not the biggest, Creepshow fans out there, who's one of my good friends and reviewers named Horror FFA, so you can go check him out. He kind of told me, like, hey, you should go check out these stories because they're out there. So, even though we won't get the Tales from the Darkside 2 movie, you'll still be able to kind of maybe get an idea as to what it might have felt like by knowing the original source material that was going to be adapted. So without further ado, let's get into the 3 stories. And I hope you guys learned something new if you're a fan of anthological horror and maybe you didn't know this. And maybe you should go check out these stories yourself. They're definitely out there to go read, whether it be on physical, whether it be you have to go to some archive site, because one of the stories is really old, but still collected in some works. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So the first story that I'm going to talk about is Pinfall, which was the story that Stephen King specifically wrote for Creepshow 2, and George Romero, I think, is the one who took it into a screenplay. I'm going to keep this one relatively short because it is a short story. It's pretty easy to spoil, and I also made a whole video on it, which I'll show here. You can go click and watch that video and learn more about it in detail. But Pinfall is basically like a good schlocky comeuppance story. It takes place in a bowling league. You have this very pretentious bowling league that gets the focus. bowling league team. This team thinks that they're hot shit. They think that they're gonna win it all. They're gonna have the most points, that nobody can mess with them. Their leader is kind of like a micromanaging dickhead. He treats the other guys bad. But they all like sniff their own asses, and they think they're hot shit. But there's another team, which I think their names are the Bad News Boars, who basically are more laid back. They like having fun. They're more nonchalant, and they're willing to stand up to this pretentious team and kind of jab at them and make fun of them. So the other guys' egos are getting hurt, and the Bad News Boars are going to be really good bowling players. So the other team, I think, is like kind of eyeballing them and thinking like, yeah, these guys aren't going to make it. We're still going to be number one. And there's this really old bowler at the league who, when he's playing, he ends up, I think, just falling down and dying from a heart attack or something. And when that happens, they find out that in his will, because he's been playing there for a long time, he actually entrusted all of his wealth to these two teams. And whoever of these two teams ends up basically having the most points and winning the league, they're going to inherit millions of dollars and get a huge payout. So right away, that sparks up some curiosity and some excitement. But the pretentious team decides that since there's so much on the line and they're afraid of the Bad News Boars, they are going to do a little bit of sabotaging. They're going to step in there and potentially they do something that might end up killing that other laid-back team. And when that happens, there's some comeuppance. Because let's just say that when these pretentious guys are playing and really confident and really happy that they're going to be getting all this money now, the lights go out in the bowling league and some entities come in and start playing quite the morbid game of bowling themselves. So I'll leave it at that. It's a very gory, schlocky, goodness kind of story. It's a tale of comeuppance where the guys you want to see lose do in fact lose by the end and lose horribly. And I can imagine that if this was adapted in the movie, I don't know how much gore stuff they would have been able to show, but from the screenplay, it sounded pretty, fucking bloody and morbid. So I'd imagine it would have been quite the sight. And that's essentially Pinfall. Now, I think if you get the collector's edition or something of Creepshow 2, there's actually a comic for Pinfall, which one of my friends, Jude DeLuca, I think provided us comic panels before, which I think I show in the original video I made. So that's essentially Pinfall. Not much to the story, but I like the fact that it takes place in a bowling league. I love that when you kind of mix it up and throw in weird settings. And it would have been kind of like homaging Father's Day from the first movie, where that kind of relied on schlockiness and comeuppance and weird forms of revenge and all this stuff. So this is sort of what it would have been like. And yeah, I would have liked to seen it, but it's like a mild good. I'd give this one like an 8 out of 10. The next one is the oldest story in the bunch. I forget the exact date, but this one is pretty damn old, and this is by Robert Bloch, a story called Almost Human. Now, Almost Human is about this robber, this thief, who basically breaks into this house and holds this kind of European scientist guy at gunpoint and kind of tells him to lead him down to the basement so he can see Junior. Now, you find out that this thief, this robber guy, basically had planted a housekeeper or maid who was actually with him the whole time. The girl, I think, is his love interest, and he basically planted her to get information, recon out this European scientist's house, and eventually when it was time, he broke in and now reveals that she was a plant the whole time. And you find out that this scientist is holding a robot in the bottom of his basement. And this robot, he's kind of teaching to evolve and grow like a human with its mind. Now, its body is this 6-foot tall hunk of metal, very sort of old school looking robot. I imagine like it looks like a gray version of, what's his name, C-3PO or whatever that guy is from, I forget his name, from Star Wars, but I can throw up a picture. He kind of looks like that. But his mind is that of a little kid, because his mind is kind of evolving the same way that a human mind would. So he's kind of like a little kid right now, or toddler, very impressionable. And what the thief is planning is that he wants to get down there, get to the robot, and basically start teaching the robot his ways. Because if he teaches the robot the criminal mindset, how to rob, how to do all these things, and kind of make this robot into his henchman. The robot can then, go rob places and go take down people without the fear of getting shot because it's made out of like iron and metal. And because it's a robot, it'll leave no fingerprints or no traces of evidence. So he's like, okay, I can use this thing for my own advantage and make a lot of money and make it big until I don't need it anymore. So he starts living inside of this house, training Junior on different stuff. You see that Junior very much is like a child. He will repeat back and be very impressionable and write on a chalkboard things that he's learning. So he teaches them like you have to hate the scientist who created you. So he starts slowly hating them. And then eventually when it gets to a breaking point and the scientist is down in the basement, the robot conveys that he's been taught to hate him. And he ends up grabbing the scientist by the throat, lifting him up, and then strangling the hell out of him. So the scientist dies. And that's when the thief and the woman take it back to their kind of house that they stay at, their base, where another guy that he works with is there. And the lady's creeped out by this thing because even though the main kind of Don thief guy is really excited about this robot seems to have a strange liking for his girl that he likes, the girl that's with him. And he keeps commenting on how pretty she is and how much he likes her. And the girl is obviously creeped out because this robot seems to be getting some type of affection or love interest. But the thief reassures that I just trained him on this stuff. I'm good with the ladies. That's how I got you. So I taught him just that. And they're planning on using him as much as they can until they can just dump him, incinerate him, and, break him up. But eventually, as the story goes along, I think that there gets to a point where the thief might not exactly get his plan played out the way he wanted to. Because let's just say that the learned behavior of the robot starts taking into effect, and there is some comeuppance that happens with Junior the robot doing something that they were not expecting, and it's quite morbid and quite dark. And yet, strangely, it works. It works for what the story was building up to. So this story, I would give like an 8.5 out of 10, very good. It does have this outdated kind of repetitive thing about robots, humans teaching robots, and those robots then taking their teachings and using it against us. But to be fair, this is an older story, so you could give it kind of a pass. But Junior the robot is extremely creepy. Every scene that he's in is extremely unnerving. The way that he speaks, the way that he stands there and looks at you, and he'll just be in the hallways, or they say when he's walking, you hear like clanking up the footsteps and or the stairs and stuff. So he's very creepy. He's very ominous. Again, the fact that he's like a little child, it's like you're teaching all these bad things to it, and eventually the child is gonna start plotting against you or acting up or doing stuff, which kind of is what plays out. And I like the concept. I like the fact that it's a little ridiculous. The fact that there's this, thief who sets up this whole scheme to rob this scientist. And then he's like, oh, I can give you all this money. He's like, no, I don't want your money. I want this robot that you're, in fact, keeping in your basement. I like that kind of weird fiction type of stuff. And, the ending is, again, quite dark. It is the learned behavior of Junior finally catching up to him. And it is morbid and it is dark. And yet at the same time, you can see that Junior did it for a certain somebody. And that truly mortifies them. So this one is an effective story. And even though it's old, I still feel like if they adapted this, it would have been fun. And I would have still enjoyed it. The same way that I still enjoyed Lot 249, which was, I think, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story. But that's still a segment that I thought was good as well. So I think that this one would have been solid. And the last story is Rainy Season by Stephen King. Now, Rainy Season by Stephen King. This story is quite fun. It is quite fun. It's quite weird. This one is about this couple who, I forget if they're a honeymoon couple or they're just vacationing, but they're going out to this vacation town, kind of taking some time for themselves. They've been driving for a while, and they're kind of on the brink of like getting into bad arguments with each other because the AC is not working. They've been sweating their asses off. They're pretty much at that kind of breaking frustration point. And they get to this small town because they're trying to find their vacation home. They get to the town, and the town looks completely dead. Like nobody's in there. Everyone's, I think, inside the buildings. It looks kind of old school, like small town America. And when they get to the kind of one place where there are cars parked up. There's this old man in a rocking chair who's rocking back and forth. You have some comedy mixed in there because he has a dog, like a mangy hut, who like is always farting. He always lifts up his tail, lets out a fart, and then just puts it back down in the middle of conversations. So you got a little bit of that old Stephen King, Southern humor. Not, well, I don't know about Southern humor, but you know, weird character type of humor. But the old guy's pretty cordial. He's greeting them. He's letting them know that, the house is theirs. It's a small town. And eventually that old guy's wife comes out. And the old guy and his wife kind of warn them about one thing. They tell him, like, you should stay indoors because it's the rainy season. The rainy season in this town comes periodically every 7 years. And when it comes every 7 years, it starts raining toads. And right away, the couple think that these guys are pulling their legs. Is this some kind of bad practical joke or prank? But the wife and the husband are deadly serious. The old man and the old woman are telling them, like, there's seriously toads that rain from the sky. And you should stay indoors. It's no joke. But it's the rainy season. It's the way things go. And they decide, okay, you know what? We're not going to listen to this anymore. They're getting creeped out by how absurd this idea is that they're promoting. So they end up leaving. And the old couple kind of leaves some hints that they're like, it's a shame that this old couple came, but the old man's like, hey, listen, I know you feel bad, but this is the way things go. It has to be done. And you're like, in the story, you're like, what the hell is he talking about? Eventually, the couple end up leaving, getting some food, some chowder and whatever. And when they get to their vacation home, they settle in. But that night, as they're settling in and kind of still joking about the whole experience, thinking that it's weird that these guys were pulling their legs and acting strange. And even when they were driving back to their vacation home, they saw some people in their windows looking at them and then closing the blinds. When they get to their vacation home and they finally sleep in for the night, they start hearing thuds, just straight up thuds. On top of the roof. And it's strange because all day there was a lot of humidity, but no dark clouds, no nothing. Now it's storming out there, and they keep hitting these periodic thuds. Just keep hearing a bunch of different thuds and smacks against the house. Then they start hearing the windows smashing. And the husband eventually gets pissed off. He thinks that these guys are taking it way too far. They're trying to like prank him so bad that they're destroying their property that they rented out now. So he races downstairs. And as he sees the window crashed in and strong wind blowing through, he sees a dark object right by the bottom of the window pane in the broken glass. And you find out that it does, in fact, rain killer toads. Yes, these football-sized killer toads, all black with mouths of needle-sharp teeth, basically start raining down, ripping into the house, ripping through the doors, and trying to bite and rip the couple to shreds. So it is a giant swarm enemy that comes in and tries to eat and kill them. So right away, this couple has to fight them off. There's some brutal kind of hair-raising scenes, and you feel really bad for the couple, and eventually it leads to one big kind of finale climax. And the ending lets you know that this may have been part of a tradition. Let's just say that there's a group of people who treat this as a tradition, treat it as a way of things, and it's a sign of bountiful harvest, success for businesses, and all that kind of stuff. So you get that small town America cult vibe thrown in. Now, this story I give a 9 out of 10. Great. Okay, I love the small town America cult vibe. Cults are getting overplayed now in media. I feel like Hollywood's trying to drive it into the ground. Everything is getting a cult now, but this is an older story. I like this small town America cult vibe, the idea of, tradition, that there's this weird phenomenon that happens every 7 years. Just so happens that you ended up at this town during that time when it's going to happen. Or was it by coincidence? You got to read the story. The creature feature action you get with these swarming rain of killer toads is pretty fucking awesome. I love the whole fiasco that happens with these raining toads. It's creepy, it's fun, it's scary, it's wild. There's some good action, some horrifying scenes. And yeah, it's just one of those stories that it's like weird fiction. It's like there's this weird town, weird setting, weird story idea, but it's executed really well. It's to the point. It doesn't overstay its welcome one bit. and I think it's got a good punchline and good just overall impact for what it was aiming for. And funny enough, one of the alien horror stories by Tim Curran, which is one of my favorites, is called Graveyard. And of course, Graveyard came out many years later, but Graveyard is like Tim Curran's version of Rainy Season. So when I had read Graveyard, I was like, oh, this, I feel like when I read Rainy Season, I might feel like this is going to be kind of similar feeling to that, because, you know, I kind of knew the premise of what Rainy Season was about. And yeah, you got the OG Rainy Season, and then you got the alien sci-fi version of Rainy Season, which is Tim Curran's short story Graveyard. And I like them both. So yeah, overall, this is a good experience. Reading through these Tales from the Darkside Unmade stories, it definitely gives you a better idea as to what the movie was probably going to be, how the execution would be. We would never know, but this movie would have came out in the 90s, and you know, I love those 80s, 90s era movies, so I feel like I still would have enjoyed it, and I would have liked this movie, and I would have loved to see the sequel. Even though we did not get it in the Unmade sequel, Creepshow is coming back with movies. So potentially it's easy money and easy game to adapt Pinfall, adapt Rainy Season, and adapt Almost Human into the new movies coming out. Obviously it won't have that 90s charm, but I feel like if Greg Nicotero is there and he's in charge with working with directly these movies as long as he can, I feel like we're still going to get good products and serviceable and fun stuff. So that's all I got for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, comment down below. Are you a fan of Creepshow? What's your favorite Creepshow segments? Have you watched the Tales from the Darkside movie? What do you think about it? And make sure, if you can and you have any time, go ahead and read these 3 stories and let me know your thoughts about them. And if you've already read any of these 3 stories before, you could also let me know what you thought. That's all I got for today. Deuces.